Hi guys, and welcome back to yet another edition of Atomic Ambition, the podcast, where we review self-help, self-improvement books. Now, I can't believe it's taken me so long to get around to sharing this book with you. Time to Think by Nancy Kline. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite books, but it's one of those books that I would put up there with Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think it's that influential as a book. I'm not sure when it was first published, if I'm really honest with you. Some time back. I've had this book for some time. Time to Think, if you don't know the book, it's the whole premise of the book is about creating a thinking environment, which I suppose that sounds a little bit pretentious. Unless you're in the world of, coaching people, executive coaching. Let's create a thinking environment. It does sound a little bit pretentious, but the idea behind it, I think, is really, really good because the idea behind it is if the quality of your thinking improves, the quality of your outcomes will also improve. That's the basic fundamental approach. If your thinking is better, then the outcomes should be better. And I don't think you can argue with that premise, really, that if you can become a good thinker, then your thoughts should lead to better things down the line for you, whether it's professionally or personally. Okay. So it's a great book. Now, there's an awful lot to unpack in the book, obviously. I'm in the middle of reading this book, and you can see here I'm at chapter 8 at the moment. And I got to chapter 8, which is called Encouragement. Chapter 8, Encouragement. I got to this chapter, started reading it, and this chapter jumped out at me. The idea of encouragement here jumped out at me as something that I thought, this should be an episode of Atomic Ambition. So you can see I'm still rereading the book, probably for the 4th time in my life, I think. But I thought, let's talk about the idea of encouragement from this book. So, what is this all about? Now, I don't think what I'm about to tell you is going to be something you haven't heard before. It's not unique in any way, shape or form. I don't know whether this idea originated with Nancy Kline in this book, but I know lots of other people in this space who've written books about self-improvement and communication have talked about this idea as well. Yeah. So it's not unique, but I think it really, really, really is important. Now, encouragement. This chapter I'm talking about is called Encouragement. That doesn't really, in my view, really describe what the chapter's about. Okay. It's really about competition for your thoughts. So the basic premise is, okay, if you can imagine you're in a meeting, you're in a discussion, and somebody else is speaking, you're supposedly listening, you're doing your active listening, you're trying to listen, but really your thoughts are somewhere else. Your thoughts are what you want to say next. So you are listening, but your thoughts are really preoccupied with how you're going to respond to that other person. It's a situation a lot of us find ourselves in time and time again. And that's what this chapter is all about. Like I said, it's not unique. There are many other people, many other books, and many other people podcasting who will have highlighted this idea that if you are involved in a conversation or a discussion, you should not be thinking about how you are going to respond. You should be spending your time really listening to the detail of what somebody is trying to say. So the competition idea, or the idea of this competition that's going on in your head, is perhaps you want to be seen as the smartest person, so you're formulating your response very quickly. Which is actually quite hazardous, I think, to high quality thinking, because until that person has finished speaking, you don't really know what they're trying to say to you. So you can't really formulate your response until that person has finished. Okay. So that is really the idea, the emphasis of this chapter. Like I said, I've only just started rereading the book and that chapter. So I might not, if I'm being totally honest with myself, I might not have covered everything from that chapter. But that is my understanding and my reasoning from what I remember from the last time I read the book. Yeah, and the chapter is really about unleashing your own potential as a thinker by being a better listener. Yeah, it kind of makes sense if you think about it. If you really, really listen to other people, then, and you wholeheartedly listen, then you can become a better thinker because you can really listen to what someone's saying, really think about it, and then voice your thoughts or your opinions, rather than having that competition going on in your head, all about being quick to respond to somebody. It's better to respond quickly than to respond slowly. And I don't know, that there is a lot of competition in the business world, I suppose. There's a lot of competition in life, I think. And do you know what? Thinking about this, I'm going back in time a very, very long time when I was in my very, very early 20s, late teens, early 20s. I was working in a recruitment office, a recruitment company, and there would be like team meetings, group meetings, and there really was so much competition with. And this was, I think this was deliberate competition by the managers, by the bosses, deliberate competition to have the best ideas and to be the most brilliant person in that meeting. And it was, it was designed that way, which is completely in contrast to this book, to the ideas in this book. But it's something, I think perhaps that's why that chapter really resonates with me, because I remember from being very young, being in these meetings, and the competition to have the best idea and be the quickest person to respond to something was so stressful. I think at the time, it was so stressful. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the time to think. We should all take some time to think. Yeah. And if you haven't read this book, it is quite a good book, quite a good thick book, quite a detailed book. There's a lot to unpack. Nancy Klein, I think her ideas are, and this sort of thinking approach that she details in this book, it's kind of become, I suppose, it's ingrained in sort of, coaching. Especially when someone's trying to improve their thought processes. This is basically the book that everyone turns to if you want to improve your thinking processes. It's this book, yeah. So I think we could all improve our thinking processes, even just by 1%. So if you can just get 1% improvement in your thought processes by reading this book, then think about how that improved thinking can improve the outcomes that you desire in your life. If your thinking is better, then arguably the outcomes from your thinking should be better for you. And that's time to think. My excellent read for this week. So, thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me rambling on about why it's important to not be the first person to speak and listen. It's not a unique idea, and I'm still rambling on, I understand. So I'm going to say thank you for your time. See you all next week with another book.